In this video, we're going to talk about sound isolation or noise isolation, why it really matters, what it is, and how different microphones and pickups handle noise and sound, and how we fingerprint your instrument to do things a little differently. We'll also talk briefly about the human ear, acoustic instruments, and why they're so important to designing sound systems. Sound isolation is a huge concern on stages where you want to play loud or in recording rooms where you want the perfect take. Sound isolation often gets overlooked by less experienced musicians. Often, the level of effort that goes into sound isolation and proper mixing and balancing of sound can be something we take for granted, like when we attend high production value live shows or listen to the perfectly recorded studio album. A lot of effort and sound isolation gets hidden thanks to clever studio engineers, live sound engineers, and audio tech companies, but it's an ever-present concern for most people who deal with sound. That said, almost every musician has to deal with feedback problems eventually. In live situations, feedback happens when the microphone starts to hear itself coming from the speakers on stage. This usually happens when you're standing in the wrong spot on stage or playing your instrument at too high of a volume. If the microphone or pickup has good quality sound isolation, it won't hear itself as well, and thus feedback is reduced. In addition, many people are on the quest for the perfect studio sound. In studio situations, the room is so quiet that any noise can ruin your recording, such as tapping your foot for tempo or heavy breathing. Good sound isolation in studio situations is often achieved by soundproofing the entire room rather than using a mic that has good isolation. To get good isolation and good quality sound at the same time is a difficult task. There is no perfect solution. Microphones and pickups each have their own pros and cons. If there's no perfect solution, do we have to hire our own sound person to follow us around? Do we have to learn as much as possible about sound design in order to play a gig? The short answer is no. We'll be asking 4 questions about microphones and pickups. Hopefully what we say next will help you understand a bit more about isolating sound. Question 1. How does the human ear isolate sound? This is the easiest to talk about because the least is known about this subject. Lots of research has been done on how the human ear works and what tasks the human mind and ear can achieve together, and yet little is known about its ability to pick out one sound from a room full of other noise. It is known that there's a process of ignoring things that you don't want to hear and focusing on things that you do want to hear, say a single conversation in a room full of people. If that conversation is louder than others, or if you're closer to it, it's easier to pick that conversation out from a crowd of other noises. We're not sure how much is understood in this field, but it's well studied that many people can do this, and that some people also struggle to do this. This suggests that it has something to do with the combination of both the ear and the brain. Question 2. How do pickups isolate sound? Pickups, also called piezo's, pick up vibration that come directly from the wood of the instrument and not the air around it. Because of this, they isolate sound incredibly well, but miss a lot of rich overtones that are created in the air inside of and around the instrument. A pickup is attached directly to a specific spot on an instrument. When an instrument is played, it vibrates, but it doesn't just vibrate in one pattern. Many different parts of the instrument vibrate in different hotspots or patterns, creating a rich amount of sound that comes from all over the instrument, including reverberations inside the body of the instrument. The sum of all these vibrations is what you would expect to be the normal sound of an acoustic instrument. The piezo, a thin membrane of piezoelectric crystals stuck directly onto the instrument, picks up these vibrations, only in the spot it is attached to and little else. This gives it amazing sound isolation, as it will not pick up other instruments or vocals, nor even other parts of the instrument, but it will give a very limited overall tone as it's missing the richness of what we expect from an acoustic instrument. The sound that is ignored by a pickup can't be magically mixed in by a good mixer. Mixers can only work with existing sound, and a pickup is stopping a lot of that richer tone from getting to a mixer. This makes a pickup an excellent solution for sound isolation and loud volume in live situations, but a mediocre solution for rich natural tone. Question 3. How do traditional microphones handle sound isolation? To answer that question, we're going to take a little journey, asking a few questions like what are microphones, how does sound come out of instruments, and finally, how do microphones isolate sound? So question 3a, what are microphones? Microphones are a mechanical attempt at copying the human ear. Microphones have a diaphragm, which is kind of like an eardrum. It wiggles back and forth as sound waves and airwaves push and pull on it. How far they're moving back and forth is volume, and how fast is pitch. This all happens at a microscopic level, making microphones very sensitive instruments. Question 3b, how do acoustic instruments make sound? We've built acoustic instruments over millennia to sound nice to the human ear from a specific distance. If you put your ear right next to something, like right inside a piano or up against the back of a guitar, it will sound different than the nice natural tone you expect to hear from a few feet away. This is because sound gets exponentially louder the closer you get to it. Also remember, that different parts of the instrument vibrate at different frequencies. If you get close to one vibrating hotspot, that sound will be much louder to your ear than any other vibrating hotspot on the instrument. A good analogy is that of an orchestra. If you sat in the middle of the violin section, the violins would sound louder than the rest of the orchestra, but if you sat in the audience, you'd hear the entire orchestra at an even volume. So, if you put your ear or a microphone directly onto an instrument, part of it will sound really loud, while the other parts will sound softer. The ideal distance to hear most acoustic instruments is about 1 to 20 feet away. Because instruments are built for the human ear and microphones are built to behave like a human ear, a microphone is generally placed about a foot away to capture the entire set of sounds coming from an instrument. Question 3C. How do microphones isolate sound? Because they capture sound directly from the air, mics can pick up all the rich vibrations and overtones coming from an instrument. For the same reason, they easily pick up any other noise in the area, including feedback, stage noise like clapping and applause, other instruments, or any noise in a quiet studio environment. All microphones have a direction. They pick up sound best in that specified direction. In the opposite direction, they pick up less or little sound. This direction is achieved by more complex acoustic physics. These directions come in a few varieties such as cardioid, hypercardioid, figure 8, and omni. And even the most directional mics, called shotgun mics, can't isolate sound completely, and can create artifacts when used in certain spaces like small rooms. But generally, the more directional a mic is, the more difficult it gets to produce the accurate and natural sound. In short, microphones don't really isolate sound. Sound isolation with microphones is often done by building really expensive and really quiet rooms around the microphone. A room like this is traditionally called a recording studio. Because of this, good quality isolation for microphones is difficult to achieve live on stage, or in more budget-friendly home studio environments. Question 4. How do hybrid pickup mic systems isolate sound? Hybrid systems combine both a piezo pickup and a microphone with a small mixer. Their intended use is to use as much of the microphone sound as possible. However, you can mix the sound towards the piezo if you have a lot of feedback or noise. If you go too far towards the piezo, you're just using the piezo and not the mic at all. You can mix more of the microphone in, but it's sensitive to feedback at louder volumes and runs into the same problems that traditional mics do. These systems usually have an EQ that's there to make the pickup sound better, but it's not always perfect. Often they give a limited EQ such as high, low, and notch, that still needs to be mixed by a professional mixing board to get a great tone. Bonus question. How the close-up system isolates sound. First, our system creates a custom fingerprint for your instrument called a profile. This profile helps our system understand what your instrument should sound like at the perfectly mic'd distance. Then you place our microphone directly inside of your instrument. This is counterintuitive, as we've just stated in this very video that there are issues with being so close to the instrument. However, it also has benefits. One large one being that the body of the instrument itself acts as a shield from other noise. On top of that, since it's so close to the sound inside the instrument, that sound is significantly louder than the other noise outside of it. Because the close-up system uses a microphone and not a pickup, the overtones might not be at the right volume, but they get picked up by our microphone. This sound then goes into a processor box which runs a special computer algorithm. Based on your fingerprint, our computer algorithm takes that sound and transforms it into a really accurate sound of the instrument as if it were heard through the human ear only a couple feet away. This algorithm is based on years of specialized acoustic research, and this is what allows us to get studio quality sound with isolation comparable to a pickup in almost any situation.